Yesterday we were walking across Dublin and we met a man, a Donegal man on a bicycle who was just mad to talk. And he said, you know, abortion has been there as an issue all my adult life. He said, I cannot believe that it's over. I never want to hear the word again. And I have to say, I felt an enormous sympathy. It sort of summed up exactly the way I felt about it myself. And I think for so many people, the weekend's vote was just like an enormous weight being lifted, a ball and chain that dogged us all our adult life being finally gone. And I can't believe that I am 50 years of age and it's taken this long. It's taken my daughter to come home for her first vote to get us here. And I think for so many women it represented so much. It's almost like society atoning for everything it's done for women in this country, atoning for how we stigmatise women faced with crisis pregnancies, the Magdalene laundries, the mother and baby homes, the shaming, the forced adoptions, the robbed identities that we're going to hear about later on this afternoon. It still goes on. And for me, you know, the biggest, I suppose, sentiment of the yes vote, the thing that people said the most was, who am I to judge? It's not my decision. And there were just so many people, I think, as a society who acknowledged that, you know what, life is hard. There are choices that loads of people have to make. They're making them today that they'd really rather they'd never have to make. It's not easy parenting alone in this state. It's not easy raising a child or children if they have disabilities with the lack of support that's there. It's not easy finding out you're pregnant maybe to a violent man or whatever. It's not easy, of course, to hear that your much wanted pregnancy has a fatal anomaly that's incompatible with life. And we as a society, we were never ever going to be able to end that pain. But what we could do was make sure that we didn't add to it. And you know, when myself and Mick and Joan brought in the legislation first in 2012, only 20 deputies voted with us. But at that time, 4 incredible women went on the Late Late Show. The first time people in this state openly identify themselves as people who travel for terminations. Amanda, Arlette, Jenny and Ruth, who later became terminations for medical reasons. And isn't it appalling that they and their colleagues had to lay bare their most appalling pain and tragedy in order to turn that into really a social movement that changed history. And they shouldn't have had to do that. And I absolutely am in awe of them and all of their colleagues who took part in this campaign. And you know, when we assembled here, when Mick moved the legislation on fatal fetal abnormalities, and they were in the gallery, and they went outside and their hearts were broken that this House had voted against them again. And there were people who travelled that day. And you know what? There's probably someone who's travelling today as well. And, you know, we shouldn't have compounded their pain, but them stepping forward was huge. And what it represented, that wasn't the beginning of the campaign. There is a rewriting, but it was actually the beginning of only what was the final phase. We had the abortion rights campaign being founded then. We had the first March for Choice, which was the first, I suppose, openly pro-choice activity that took place in this state. It was only after that that sadly Savita died. And then the move to repeal got a greater urgency, and many, many people came on board the repeal movement, and I'm delighted that they did. But, you know, before the glory days, we should remember, and it was the Well Women's Centre, it was the Irish Family Planning Association, it was the Abortion Support Network in the UK who took in our women and girls who paid for their fares. And it was, if I had to name one person more than anyone, it was Alva Smith. Let's be clear here. Alva Smith is a giant in terms of this movement and has stood there when there was no glory to be had. And I acknowledge your role, Taoiseach, genuinely, and you, Minister Harris, it took you a while to get there. I've no doubt that you were helped by Minister Savone at the Cabinet and definitely by Deputy O'Connell at the Parliamentary Party. Not sure you would have got there as quick without them, but you were at the helm and you did steer the ship, and history will testify that you delivered, and I thank you for that. But let's be honest here, right? Politicians haven't led on this issue. We haven't even followed until recently. This has been an uphill battle, pushing a boulder up a hill over decades, and nobody in here was involved in pushing it up. Let's be honest about it for once, can we? Nobody was. In actual fact, a lot of people in here were sitting on the boulder, making it even more difficult for those outside who wanted to push for change. And then we have the others, of course, who once the boulder was at the top of the hill and it was about to go down the other side, decided to jump ahead, even though they hadn't done any of the pushing, and try and claim some of the glory. I don't say that to make points, Count Corley. It's to learn the lessons, because you know what? There is going to be a next time, and maybe we can learn next time round. You know, we need to move to enact the legislation. You know, even today, to be honest, I've heard it. People trying to out-posture each other into who's going to be the most radical. How long? Should we cancel all holidays between now and forever? Let's bring the legislation in tomorrow. Should we bring it in yesterday? It's a nonsense, lads. Can we please just cop on with the games? It's despicable, I think. My last point, and I mean, is to the students and the young people in this country. I'm proud of the student movement. I was one of those students years ago, and we didn't succeed in changing the world, but I really hope that this generation does, because the young people who mobilise and enfranchise their members, they're the legends out of this, and I hope they make a better job of changing the world than we did.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Daly. Deputy Michael Harty, are you sharing with